My talk is going to be about the React Native state, where we are and where we are headed. I feel like there are so many things happening right now in React Native that we owe you an update. So I've been working with React Native for so many years that I stopped keeping track of them. But that doesn't mean, React Native itself is stable. Many people were afraid that React Native maybe is degrading, slowly approaching its end as the issues are arising and more bugs are happening, and where is the 1.0 release? Truth is, it's the opposite. I feel like the state of React Native couldn't be any better, and I hope to give you some arguments to prove that in my talk. So, what is the best way to present you the state of React Native and sort of prove that it's not going down or going anywhere? Numbers, right? Everyone loves numbers. We love diagrams on slides. That's when it sounds cool. It looks professional. So let's go through some categories and check out some numbers that I prepared for you. So we'll start with a history of React Native. So once upon a time, exactly 1,314 days ago, React Native was introduced by Tomokino. Right? That is a screenshot from ReactConf 2015. And when this happened, I was actually coding a side project in Angular when I was also watching the conference videos. And 2 months after, on 26th of March, it became an open source project. And actually, I went ahead and I checked the Hacker News article that was announcing React Native. And I was very surprised to see that people were already arguing about patents there and all the clauses. I thought it was somehow a new topic. And so one thing is for sure, the main screen of the app didn't change at all, right? And actually, if you would like to try the very, very, very first release of React Native, it works. It was very surprising to me, but it means that the design decisions around the CLI were actually very future-proof, in a way that they still work. So today we have more than 60,000 stars on GitHub. That's more than any other framework out there, if only that mattered for anyone. So let's talk about some contributions. There are a total of 1,715 developers that have ever contributed to React Native over time. 49 of them are actively contributing this year, so far. And if you are thinking that this is a small number, it's just 65% of all contributors from last year. And since we are in the middle of the year, my feeling is that this number will be more or less similar, but I'll be able to tell you this next year. So thank you for all the commitment and effort making the framework better every day. And if anyone have ever done anything to the React Native community and is here, thank you very much, because we wouldn't be where we are if it wasn't for you. All right, so let's talk about releases. So we have created more than 200 releases of the framework in total. And we are almost at 0.59. And the first version to be released this year was 0.53. So in total, there are more than 10 million downloads from NPM of React Native over time. And I think that number is huge. But what surprised me even more is that peak that you can see in June last year, that is almost 5 times bigger than the average download times. And I wasn't able to figure out why this happened and what was the cause. If you happen to know the answer, please let me know, because we are all like freaking out why this is happening. Maybe it's a glitch, I don't know. Okay, so let's move on to pull requests. And by the way, the numbers are maybe like 5 days old, so it's very likely that they are already outdated. We have 239 pull requests open right now. Is that a lot? Well, that's just 3% of total amount of pull requests ever submitted to React Native. And 20% of them has been created more than 6 months ago. And at first it sounds like it's a bad thing. Maybe we are not moving fast. But on the other hand, they are all updated within past 6 months. So even they were created last year, community keeps rebasing them, so they are still ready to get merged. And in general, we have successfully imported, or merged, in other words, 2,463 pull requests. That's just 35% of them all. So that means 65% of pull requests were not merged to the React Native core. And that doesn't mean we are against contributions, because they are all great, filled in by the community. But due to the Facebook infrastructure, many of them got stalled or were left in unresolved state, making it very hard to action on them. So let's move on to issues. So we have 683 issues open right now. That sounds like a lot, right? It's a big number. Usually my projects have like 10, maybe 20, right? 600 is a lot. But it's just 5% of the total amount of issues ever submitted. And by the way, the total amount of issues ever submitted to React Native was 13,000. So that is a huge number. But the good thing is that 80% of all the issues in React Native were opened this year, meaning that we are actively working on the framework. And the fact that we have a lot of issues doesn't mean we are ignoring them. We actually are dealing with new requests and new issues that are arising from the new releases. So that means only 140 issues are older than 6 months, right? So that's less than 1% of them all. That's not bad, right? So there is tremendous work that has been done by Hector Ramos from Facebook and many other great developers working hard to get the issues counter down, to close duplicates, to fix original issues, and to make the framework even better. Unfortunately, because of GitHub API limitations, I wasn't able to list all developers that were closing issues. So if you are one of them, this slide is also for you. So please raise your hand if you have ever commented on a GitHub issue to a React-related project. Okay, not many hands left. Ever submitted pull request to React Native any other library? Answer the Stack Overflow question. See, I'm getting to raise so that everyone raises hands. So that's the trick. Help someone do their work with React Native. And the last question is for those who have not raised hands, just to test whether they are willing to. Have you ever attended React Native Europe conference? Think about that. All right. So again, thank you very much. Everyone raised hands here, meaning that you are all contributing very important pieces to the community. And I said it already, and I will be saying that for the next 2 days. Thank you very much for what you are doing for the community. So let's talk about reality. We know the numbers. What do they mean? So for a long time, a tiny React Native team at Facebook was working very hard to keep the framework going and make sure that as many issues as possible got fixed. They spent a lot of their time, of course, focusing on creating features that no other external contributors could have done, like Fabric, right? They are so coupled and so dependent on Facebook requirements that they have to be done internally. And they also are dealing with a lot of incoming requests from other apps they did. Like they had some bugs to solve, so obviously their priorities are to solve the problems they are facing internally first. So the result was that many issues were left hanging out there while new features were landing, and people were like, why this new feature has been created? Why we are breaking the framework or innovating on it when there is a simple overflow not working on Android, right? Maybe that's a bad example because this one actually was important, but so, like on one hand, everyone was thankful for the framework and appreciated the code being shared with other developers in an open source fashion, right? On the other hand, it wasn't possible for the community to influence the development in a clear way unless you were able to persuade your friends at Facebook, for example, or other core team members that your particular feature is going to be the best. And that's risking many hours lost if it gets rejected. And there were pull requests like that got rejected after someone spent like a few months on it, just because there was a tiny detail that we forgot to discuss up front. It's not the best process at scale, right? So I know what you are thinking. Why we just not go ahead and fork it? Indeed, it was an option and there were people that were suggesting this. But why not try changing the process first, instead of dividing the community, right? So that's what we tried. And inspired by the React community, and after many internal discussions between Facebook and the community, we came to an agreement to establish an RFC-like process with two of the following purposes in mind. First, to let Facebook communicate significant changes to their core React Native infrastructure like Fiber, and be able to discuss and compare them with what community thinks about them. And second, to make a space for the community to suggest their ideas and improvements and send them for Facebook's consideration before starting work. And I believe it's a significant step forward. It's the beginning of a slow process that will result in the community taking over the maintenance and development of the framework. So now the big question is, how do we do it? Turns out we already have a way and place to do it. And it's so odd and obvious that it actually made me smile. So have you ever heard of React Native community group on GitHub? Anyone? Okay. So React Native community is a GitHub organization started as a small group designed to collect different important community modules where maintainers can seek help from others and eventually get a break as others step in. And there is already a hand of useful modules in there, including React Native Blur, SVG, model, camera, video. I'm pretty sure that you have used at least one of them once in your project. So we have also begun using it to post updates about upcoming releases, the CI status, and to post changelogs. This repo is called React Native Releases, and you can safely watch it. We have tried to limit comments from other people to minimum, so that when you watch it and you get an email from this repo, you can be sure that there is something important going on that you have to read. No necessary notifications. That's what the React Native repo is for discussing other issues. And so we decided to create a new repository in the organization to keep working on it from there. And at that point, it became clear that this group was home to the React Native community. It is a central place for all our future efforts, starting from today. And after 2 years, which is making me really excited, React Native has gained community organization on GitHub to accelerate growth of the community and encourage new contributions. And thanks to it being fully supported by Facebook, we can now have a real impact on the direction of the framework. How cool is that, right? So I strongly encourage you to watch this repository. It's a must. It's a must if you are interested in React Native development and want to stay updated, and most importantly, take part in its further development. It's a place made by the community for the community, and everyone here and in the world is encouraged to leave a comment, heads up, and submit their own ideas. The more discussion about React Native development, the better. There are already few areas where active discussion is happening in order to shape future React Native APIs. So let me just quickly show you a few of them. So the first one, Fiber, is a new core architecture of React Native. And I'm not going to be diving deep into details because we will be having a great talk by David Vaca from Facebook on this very subject that will answer all the questions you might have. And I don't know a better person than David to talk about that. He's a member of React Native team, and when I met him back in San Francisco a few months ago, he was working on that and was pretty excited. So I'm looking forward to that talk as well. So that being said, there is also a great thread in the discussions and proposal repo that aims to collect most of the important information and updates in a single place. So if you always wanted to know more about React Native, about Fabric, that's the place you should subscribe to. And by the way, I'm like getting confused with all the F code names that Facebook is using. We just realized yesterday there is Fabric, Fiber, and there are others Where is Yanni? Yanni, you know them. Oh, and there is also React Fire, yeah, that's right. So 3 of them, right? And my favorite one, the Slimany. That's the way you read that. So I know what you are thinking, like, what does that even mean? So please raise your hand if you have ever heard that word. Right? People from US, I know where you are sitting now. Okay, and how many of you actually think it's a word? See? Actually, yeah, it's a term that has been originally brought up to describe the process of making React Native as a whole more lightweight, with less modules, less code, and less issues. Getting slim, right? That's where the name comes from. And we are analyzing the existing source code of the project, trying to select good candidates to be removed, or more likely, get extracted out to a separate repo. As a part of that, there were a few proposals created, and I wanted to highlight one of them, the first one. The one that paved the way for all the others, about extracting WebView from core by Jamal Holguin from Infinite Red. Great work, Jamal, on that. And the proposal is to extract WebView out of the main framework, as you guess. And to avoid redundancy, I strongly encourage you to check out this pull request for details. One important thing to say here is that all the core components of React Native that we will strip out of the core will be placed in the React Native community. So that's another strong reason for having an official community organization where we can put those pieces. We are not taking them away. We are not throwing them. We are putting them in a place where they will be cared about and looked after. And there is also a proposal by us at Callstack to extract CLI out of the repo. There is one about Bird Coca pods and much more. The list keeps growing as the community is discovering this repo and submitting their ideas. And we would really appreciate you taking a look at it in your free time and giving your reaction to it. Whether you like it or not, just let us know, because when we have your feedback, we can make sure that the proposal is satisfying for everyone. So wrapping up, this year being part of React Native felt like roller coaster to me. There were many new faces. Many friends of mine decided to leave React Native community and start doing something else. Many libraries were created. Many were deprecated. We shipped new releases and bugs too. What stayed the same is our commitment to develop awesome apps for our clients, which brings us all here in Wrocław for a second year in a row. So I want you to have a great time at this conference, enjoy the talks, breaks, after party, and take home with you many great improvements and ideas to help you write better software of tomorrow. Thank you very much.